these businesses are back to pre-COVID levels and are only going to see an increase. For instance, this conversation we're having today is going to be a lot more common. I mean, I do expect that people will continue to work from home to a fair degree. I don't think the 5-day work week is in any case coming back. I think people will come into work maybe 2-3 days a week, but then I think they'll definitely work out of home for 1 or 2 days, and I think that's a more efficient model. So you're going to have a bit of a hybrid model. Again, a lot of restaurants will permanently close down if they continue with the present model, but there are opportunities to pivot and make sure that they continue to stay relevant. So and then this is something that we have discussed a few slides back, but the fact is customers are preferring two things: hyper-personalized products, on-demand services, but from brands that they can trust. So, and of course, there's always an opportunity. You have a lot of new companies like VFast which have come up, which actually provide very niche requirements and needs. I think iRobot, which has been in India for a long time, has only seen a traction in sales right now. I think counterintuitively, you have seen a demand and increase for luxury goods and, exotic cheeses and wines and so on and so forth. Counterintuitively, you have seen demand for larger TVs. But when you look at it commonsensically and not counterintuitively, you discover that, yes, it is quite obvious. If you're going to be stuck at home and you're not going to watch a movie at a theater and Netflix is your primary source of entertainment today, you would appreciate a recliner, you would appreciate a bigger TV. In case you don't want, you want to minimize on use of domestic helps and drivers and other stuff, it is logical that you'll invest in a washing machine and a dishwasher. And then, so some of these things are obvious. And there have been some interesting product innovations. You have companies that come up with anti-corona fabric. You have these liquids which wash fruits and vegetables. These are seen and then they do away with germs and pesticides. And again, in this COVID situation, I think that product is something which the customer would like. Amul, for instance, had 33 product launches this quarter or the quarter gone by. It's in the decades of existence, it's been the biggest ever. Again, very counterintuitive. Who would launch products at this point in time? So I think the lesson for all of us is that not to stop marketing during a downturn. I think there are opportunities to market creatively. I think the markets are also economized, but here, in case you go out and differentiate yourself today, you can gain a lot of market share, a lot of mind share. And I think as long as you're able to adapt your marketing channel mix to suit the new normal, for instance, what the real estate industry has done so well, they have moved to advertising on Facebook and on digital channels. As long as we do that, as long as we use sales channels which are very different from what we've been using, and people pivot and are trained to deal with this so-called new normal, I think there's a big opportunity here. And I think the worst thing we could do right now is to not launch new products, to stop marketing, to not get sales and distribution channels to be more innovative and creative, because customers will consume. Yes, there are customers who are affected in this COVID situation. That's unfortunate. But the fact is, you still have a large market which is going to continue to consume and needs your help to be able to consume, but consume in a different way. Help them consume it better. So just a short slide on what we have done well. One of the things we've been trying to do as a brand at Future Generali has been to build trust. So we've been reaching out to customers and telling them that, our products, for example, already cover people from COVID, so not to panic. I think, unfortunately, a lot of customers weren't aware about the features and benefits of the plans that they had. So a lot of people went out and actually wanted to buy an additional product so that COVID is covered. So we wanted to see there's a difference between taking an opportunity and being opportunistic. We wanted to take an opportunity, but not be opportunistic at the expense of the customer. And we wouldn't want to sell to a customer a product he or she may not require, especially when the need is already fulfilled with the existing customer. Similarly, a lot of customers who had deferred their claims because of the COVID, people who had met with an unfortunate event or met with an accident, but then could not take their cars to the garage, and then you had the lockdown, are people we reached out to proactively and we told them that don't worry, we'll honor the contract. We also extended in a lot of cases the insurance cover for customers because we knew that that they could not pay the renewals. So I think what's really important is that you don't seem to be taking advantage of your customers during this time, and everyone's going through a hard time. Our customers, definitely, all our customers. And again, like I mentioned, that there are opportunities. There's an opportunity to add value to a customer and do good for the company and for the customer at the same time, but it's not a good time to be opportunistic. So that's it from my end. Thank you for the opportunity, but I just want to end by saying that I think China is ahead of the curve in terms of the recovery from COVID. And recently in Shanghai, you had the Fashion Week, and they noticed something called revenge shopping. So luxury brand sales had doubled over last year. So, almost all of sales of European, fashion providers have now come from China. And in China, you've also seen a demand for exotic foods, exotic dining. People are buying luxury cars and vehicles, even entry-level. So overall, domestic consumption has gone up. And mind you, last 2 quarters, you have seen growth. Last quarter has been impressive, 4% plus growth for China. A lot of that has come through domestic consumption. So while brands which have salience and trust, including luxury brands, obviously enjoy that, and that's why they're able to charge a premium. But the fact is that China, which is ahead of the curve, is a great example to what the future is going to look like. That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anurag, again for having me over, and I wish the rest of the sessions all success. Thanks.
एबीपी न्यूज आपको रखे आगे।
Do you think consumers have started trusting online transactions a bit more, and has advertising played a role in it?
Yeah, see, firstly, let me thank you for the introduction. I believe you called us relatively smart marketers. That sets the benchmark low. So whatever we say can come across as intelligent, right?
And
so
we were offered money.
So firstly,
TV,
thanks
sorry.
for that. That's true. That's true. You
Yes.
bribed us on live channel right now, right? So that works in our favor too, right? See, trust forms the core of marketing to my mind, right? So I don't think people should look at brands as to what are their advertising spends or what is it that they do on an ad. Of course, it's a part of marketing, but if you actually look at it, trust is formed on the basis of what brands do in times of crisis, and it comes from not just an advertising or a messaging standpoint. It comes
Sure.
from what you do at that particular point of time. And this whole situation of COVID, if you look at it, has only exaggerated that situation. It's brought it front and center, right? So, let me split brands three ways, and then I'll come to the second part of your question. There are brands that have actually benefited from this unfortunate situation. And I would like to say that PayPal, which is in the space of digital payments, we've benefited because you obviously see a lot of people coming into the space to make digital payments. And we'll get into the reasons of that as we go along, right? Then there are brands that have actually taken a hit during the heart of this particular crisis, which would be, let's say, brands in the space of, food deliveries, for example. At that particular point of time, for them to actually pivot their entire model, like what Swiggy did, for example, was to get into delivery of groceries, right? Brands like Dettol benefited because obviously the whole idea of hygiene came into play, right? So how nimble you are and how you're able to address a particular customer problem is what defines trust.
Okay.
Right? And it comes from your actions and not just by what you say. Like globally, if you look at it, during the whole COVID situation, of course, there are brands that took a big hit, right? But they said, like Cadbury, I don't want to just talk about our own brand. I want to talk about Cadbury's, right? Rather than just saying that, you know what, there are a lot of brands that went and said, you know what, we will educate you about COVID. To me, it is about meaningful messaging, right? Like, I don't want my broker telling me about hygiene. There are hundreds of brands that are doing that. I want to be meaningful in the space that that I'm operating in, right? So Cadbury's didn't just go into the UK. They didn't come out with a messaging that was sweet and say, you know what, even in these tough times, let's have a little bit of sweetness around us by chewing onto a gum or a Cadbury or something like that. What they did is they partnered with something called the Age Foundation in the UK, right? And it wasn't just messaging. They then went on to actually make a donation, right? We saw several big brands. I completely agree with my panelists. Big brands did benefit from this whole thing. But if you look at social media, right, which is the voice of how the world is progressing, you saw the biggest of brands taking a hit. When people said, we're going to distance our logo, which is what a lot of brands did, right? Everybody took their logo apart and they said, okay, right now distancing is all it is. The first half of the pandemic was all about brands taking their logos apart. Of course, it's intelligent. You're educating people. But that took a lot of flack in the Western media, especially, where people said, okay, you're telling me to distance it, but what have you done in this whole situation? And you looked at brands like Nike that went and actually donated money for this particular thing, went on to manufacture PPE kits, which is not their business, right? So I can talk about PayPal in terms of what we did, but I don't want to talk about that. We are talking about brands in general. So to my mind, trust is built by what you do. That is the core of what customers value you for, right? And customer sentiment and what it has evolved into, largely what you would see is, everybody knows that people are moving towards content, people are consuming more digitally, right from buying medicines to watching online shows. OTT platforms have skyrocketed. All of that is true. The biggest change that we see is the formation of a new group, which we like to call the silver tech, which is old people coming onto digital. And fundamentally, the difference is that they're not coming because they're really enthralled with what is happening. They see this as a means of actually controlling the pandemic. The fact that you're not exchanging rupee notes or coming in close contact with people necessarily makes it something that is interesting for them. So in a lot of ways, we are seeing the core digital space evolving because of what people do. But the bigger bit is around the older generation also coming into this whole thing. Yeah,
Sure. Mr. Narayanan is extremely proud of his campaign, and that's why he's elevating this tomato marketer. Harish, coming over to you. Your insights over the last 7 months, how do you think consumer behavior has changed?
I think, I'm the last one, I think, speaking on this topic. So it's a little unfair because all the cream is already taken away. But I still have a certain take on this. And I believe that all of us, including the panelists and various other marketers all across the globe, we are getting to know the consumers in crisis. That's a slightly different experience than what we have been doing, because consumers, to me, are deeply concerned about the impact, both from health and economic perspective. And so people are really behaving in a very different way. And so purchase habits are also very different. So what on the panelists, what the way we behave to what our peers behave and what so the purchase habits are different, and it's happening across the globe. And so there is a bit of a learning that's happening, and consumers, because they're responding in a variety of ways, and some are feeling really anxious, worried. There is a bit of a panic buying on staples and hygiene. We saw that in the early days, and now we are seeing that consumers are largely the new normal. I mean, nothing is normal in the new normal. I think we all understand that. But the new buying behaviors are, or the shopping habits are becoming somewhat, and I come from BFSI and largely the I part of the BFSI. And so we notice that there is an ever increasing focus on health. The brands that are talking about health, lifestyle, people who are making the health strategy as a core, and I think they are one of the strategic differentiators. And I think for a foreseeable future, we believe at least that the health seems to be an important element. And there is a good rise in consumption of conscious consumption. We all know that during the last few months, we kind of saved something more than what we otherwise could have done during the working days and working from home days. There is a bit of a saving that happening. And there is a growing love for local. The desire to shop local is reflected both in, the local sourcing as well as connecting with the local brand, something that's just around your shop, around your street. versus thing. And yes, I completely agree with the panelists who are also talking about the adoption of digital. And I think Aegon is one of the pioneers in the life insurance, especially being only digital brand. And so the vision where we are talking about direct to customer kind of resonates well with this. And the pandemic seems to have changed the perception, especially towards health protection plans. And people have realized that it's important to get protected. And this is the unforeseen event. And the terms and conditions is really clicked out here to say this is the event that's kind of going to help us insurance purchases in the future. So that's my take. I think there is this constant understanding and realization that's never stops. But I believe that digital commerce has seen a good boost, and there is a good amount of migration to the digital platforms than the phygital or physical platforms. That's the way I would like to put it.
So every pandemic does bring a change in thinking strategy for most of the marketers. Now, moving forward, I would like to draw all your attention. We had a conversation, a freewheeling chat with UK Sena, the former SEBI chairman, and he mentioned categorically to us that, we are not taught the concept of money in schools as a general population. And that's why it becomes very difficult to convince the Aam Aadmi, especially in India, to go for mutual fund investments, maybe equity investment, debt market investment. They are not able to see through beyond gold and fixed deposits. Now, as marketers, do all of you feel that this COVID has given us an opportunity to reframe, maybe segment our communication, because largely the solutions the category offers is one size fits all? Do we need to segment our communication, or maybe there could be some regulatory changes? I know Akash mentioned before our conversation that no, we don't need any regulatory changes, but regulatory changes like involvement of celebrities, maybe you can get a celebrity on board, to market your products. So I'll start with Harish, because he had a complaint that he got the last chance. So Harish, here you go. You start here first. How do you think, as a category, BFSI can change its communication, make it more segmented, especially after COVID?
Yeah, I think, and thanks for this, because I think I get to at least mention a couple of things that are slightly unique for us, and I don't sound repetitive on the panel. See, a majority of our population, our target segment, really resides in tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India. So, which makes this market very important. We are actually selling, especially from the digital perspective, simple term plans, sachet-sized term plans, and the customers in the smaller cities are really becoming aware and of the need and both the importance. So the larger point that we need to be therefore trying to address out here is for us as a brand, and it's really not changed, because we were always digital and we were trying to target that segment of customer. What's really fueled for us is the speed at which the adoption of digital is happening at that segment of customers. My Tumkur, or my any other smaller town, tier 2, tier 3 cities, customers are really adopting the digital, and so that is what is really important from our brand perspective. And these putting across products such as sachet size products, or putting across a health or a protection idea is really resonating well.
Sure.
And therefore for us, I think the majority of the act that we have done in the last few months or week, especially post-pandemic and the last few weeks post-unlockdown, it is just in line with the overall digital strategy for Aegon. We've been digital and we continue to remain digital. There is an impetus that is pushing more to kind of put across projects that are making more sense to the target segment.
Sure. Akash?
Yeah, okay. See, I think I'm smiling because of the whole regulatory comment again. I mean, as if we don't have enough regulations already. See, I think specifically on your question on money, right? I think I've always seen money as a skill, right? And I think, and that's what your comment also alluded to, right? Saying we're not taught money, right? Yes. And I think in my mind, whether you're a kid or an old, or a 30-year-old, even a 50-year-old, it's a skill which can be learned, right? That's point number one. I think the second point is, and it's also not only about educating the customer, right? And saying, let me, either give you, the traditional way of saying, let me give you a whole, long article for you to read, and you can go ahead and read it, and you'll learn a lot more about money, for example, right? Or if you look at the high end of the spectrum, where you've got, financial experts, relationship managers, which actually, to a certain extent enable you, help you to know money better and manage it better, right? But I think the way, directionally, and I'm a firm believer of what I say financial skilling is going to be a good, strong combination of technology and a lot of communication, right? Now, let me explain what I mean by that, right? See, fundamentally, everyone understands the value of money in their lives, right? Everyone understands the need for them to manage their money better, right? I think so. From a very clear need and appreciation perspective, that's not an issue. The challenge comes in is the fear or the lack of confidence in your ability to do a good job, right? How do you solve that? So the first aspect, and again, given we're a digital bank, again, part of our ethos is to say, how do you make the journeys, right, the consumer journeys outside the platform, on the platform, a lot more seamless and comfortable, right? I mean, if, for example, for a person who starts an SIP for $500, still needs some sort of an enablement to help him choose which mutual fund to invest in, right? You can start with the nudge of saying, I'm going to help you make that decision, give you ratings of what mutual funds delivering better, help you understand how do you read a ranking report and so on and so forth. But the platform itself has to start playing a lot stronger role in enabling that.
एबीपी न्यूज आपको रखे आगे।